thank you very much for your presentation. Obviously, you need no introduction, but I think for context, it would be really good if we all introduce ourselves. So I'll go last. David, would you like to go first?
Hi, yes. My name's David Poole. I'm the CEO and co-founder of a company called Symphony Ventures. We are a consulting and IT or software services firm working in the space of robotic process automation, cognitive automation, and artificial intelligence, helping large companies, I guess, understand how to build strategies around those and how to implement them. We're a London-based organisation, but we have a large part of our organisation in Krakow in Poland and have quite a large technical team in Poland.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Krzysztof Janusz. Thank you for having me. I represent Intive, which is a software development house. We do provide our services mainly out of Poland to 80 or 90%. Recently, we opened an office here in London, the Canary Wharf. So we do have a relatively strong presence here and relatively strong client base in the UK. We do help our clients in this, so to say, digital transformation that is happening at the moment, mainly for the clients that are not in the digital world. Have 1,300 people on board, so we are not that small. And what happened was that we sort of merged and acquired 3 different companies last year. So Intive is a brand that is not even a year old, but our history is back to the 1999, actually. Thank you.
Thank you. Simon.
Good afternoon. I'm Simon Spier. I'm Head of International Trade at techUK. techUK is the trade association for the tech industry in the UK. We have approximately 950 members, ranging from the innovative startups to the household FTSE 100 names and everything in between. Through those 950 members, they employ around 700,000 people, which accounts for roughly half of all tech jobs in the UK. And we work with companies being the voice of the tech industry in terms of the conversations with government, but also helping those companies grow in the UK and internationally. And I look after the international part, so working with members, helping them look at other markets, and also working with the international community and organisations flagging the UK as a place to come and do business for tech.
Okay, thank you. Right, and very briefly, I'm the president of the Global Sourcing Association, and I run the Global Sourcing Association in the UK. We're the industry body and professional association for all types of sourcing, representing the interests of buyers and service providers. And obviously one of the reasons why we're here is, or I'm certainly here, is because Poland is a really large destination for shared services and business services. So I feel like this is a little bit of a club because apart from you, Phelim, you're on the outside. I'm really sorry about this. So Simon and I were at an event 2 weeks ago talking about the opportunities of Ukraine. And David and Krzysztof and myself were in Poland in Łódź, sorry, I just say it verbally, Łódź, earlier this week at the ABSL conference. So we were very, I think, fairly privileged to have ABSL fund David Cameron go over to Łódź and do a presentation on probably the first presentation he's actually done since Brexit. And what he actually said, he did not apologise, but I believe he came to the closest he possibly could come to an apology, and he said there wouldn't be a single day in his life that he would not worry about the referendum. So that's as close to an apology as I think you could possibly get from a previous Prime Minister. So what have you guys witnessed from the results of Brexit so far? So Simon, can I start with you?
Sure. I mean, I think the first thing to say is that Brexit hasn't happened yet. It won't happen for around 2 years. But obviously people are starting to react, but we haven't seen huge actual tangible changes on the ground from what we're seeing, but we are seeing a lot of interest in markets outside of the EU. And I think it's going to be interesting as we go through the next 2 years. There's obviously a lot of challenges, but there's also a lot of opportunities that are going to arise. And we are working with our membership extensively to reassure them on some of those challenges, but also to see how we can, as a tech community in the UK, take advantage of some of the opportunities that will be provided.
Okay. Anybody else got anybody seen any significant changes as a result of Brexit so far?
I mean, in our business, our industry, the good thing is that our UK clients are still talking to us, so that's good. I mean, obviously there has been no change. I mean, we tend to some extent avoid the Brexit, thing when we do business. We think at the moment it's irrelevant because nobody knows how it ends. I mean, there is 2 years of negotiations and then probably, I don't know, like 7 years of implementation, the whole thing that will be negotiated. The only negative impact that we see, obviously, is that, there is currency fluctuations. I mean, pound to euro, euro to pound, and it's in our case, we have our costs in Polish zloty, but the revenue in the UK market is in in British pound. So it means to stay at the same margin level, we have to slightly higher our pricing. So that means we might be perceived less attractive for some of the UK clients. We like to avoid that, but that's part of the economic reason for that. So that's the one negative effect that I've seen so far.
I mean, really nothing significant from our perspective yet. Some of our banking clients are thinking about transforming or even moving some of their operations, but nothing at this stage that's significant. I mean, we quite like the exchange rate. A lot of our revenue is actually in dollars, so most of our costs are in pounds or zloty, so that's been good for us. But in terms of impact with clients, nothing significant.
So quite different to your experience then, Phelim. You're seeing improved M&A activity.
Yeah, I think that's right. So, as an M&A lawyer, what you traditionally don't want is uncertainty, because uncertainty means that people will delay their investment decisions. But as I say, maybe counterintuitively, that hasn't been borne out over the last 12 months. So.
Okay, when I'm asked what I think is going to actually happen as a result of Brexit, I always say I think it's going to be a huge opportunity for the CEE region. And the reason why I actually say that is, one, the UK doesn't have enough talent at the moment as it is. We've got best part of 1 million Poles working in the UK. And although I don't believe there will be any legislation that stops Poles that are already over here working in the UK, I do believe there will be a natural return to Poland. If you look at the number of people that have already left the UK because they no longer feel as welcome as they used to, and that might extrapolate over time, I believe we're going to experience a further loss of talent, and that's actually going to, one, give Poland back a lot of its own skills, but two, it's going to drive the UK businesses to a need to actually outsource more. So would you guys agree with that? Am I making sense, or Simon?
I mean, yeah, the logic is sound. I think there is a lot of opportunity. I think one thing that is going to be an issue is that Poland and the region will be now competing more with non-EU countries, I think, as we still obviously need to see exactly what the relationship with the EU will be like in 2 years plus, but a lot of companies we are seeing who have traditionally focused on the EU are suddenly looking at other markets. They're not necessarily acting on that yet, but they're looking to see what other opportunities there are, and almost hedging their bets to see, well, actually, if the trading relationship isn't as strong with the EU in the future, and potentially we have better relationships with countries such as Japan, Korea, Canada, New Zealand, who knows, then actually there's an opportunity there. So I think you're right, but I think there is the danger that Poland while is very strong within the EU, as the UK looks more broadly outside of the EU, it might be in for a bit of a harder fight.
Okay, interesting. So if we look at the figures, India is by far the largest destination that the UK uses for business services, and Poland is by far the second largest destination, and those in position 3rd through to 20 is a very much movable and mixed bag. So David, you chose to set up in Poland.
Yeah.
Why?
I think several things. First of all, physical proximity. Poland is easy to get in and out of. Although getting to Łódź was not necessarily the easiest last week. But what I would say is that there's also a kind of a cultural affinity. So when you're doing something, so in business services, when you're operating at a sort of a higher level where you do need people to be talking to clients and really understand the context of what they're talking about and so on. Poland's just fantastic for that. Also, the work we're doing is highly technical, and there is a sort of a, and this is obviously dangerous talking to a room half full of Polish people, but there is a mentality which is actually quite detail-oriented and technical-oriented, and I think it is it's a great asset for Poland in terms of its ability, its education, and so on. We chose Krakow, but we know the only reason I chose Krakow is I've been working there for many years. We understand, we have relationships with the universities. We recruit a lot from AGH, for example, in the artificial intelligence space. It's very, very strong in that. So really it was a familiar place. I think the people we recruit are real new generation Europeans, very, very culturally affine to the rest, connected to the rest of Europe, and the education system very, very good for what we need.
Okay.
That was our reason.
So the reason we were taken to Łódź for this conference was obviously because Poland's trying to move more into Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities, because I understand it that Krakow is completely saturated. Is that not a big challenge and a problem really for the future development of Poland, is that you're already hitting saturation? I'm going to ask you, Krzysztof.
I think that Krakow is saturated. That's certainly the case. It's by far the largest destination city in Poland, followed by probably Warsaw and Wrocław. So obviously there is a problem there. So how we are trying to solve it in Poland, we are trying to attract people from like Eastern European countries, from Ukraine, Belarus, to come over to move on to settle there and deliver the services out of Poland. So this is what we see is happening. There is, however, a lot of still slightly smaller cities than Krakow, like Białystok or like Lublin. They are also perceived as a very attractive, destinations. There is a strong local patriotism of the people that are coming from these regions, so they are willing to move over back from I don't know, like Warsaw or Wrocław, where they have started, back to their home locations, and so I think this is partially how we can solve it, but certainly we will reach the capacity at one point. So I think the solution for us might be that we will attract more and more like Eastern European talent. I hope. I mean, by what I heard from David, I'm pleased. I mean, someone not from Poland speaking about Poland, that way. So it's obviously very, very good and great to hear. So I think we are a country that can treat foreigners well. That they can feel good, living there, and certainly we'll have to think about the ways of solving problems Krakow has right now. I mean, there. Thank you.
Phelim, do you know anything to add on to that about the opportunities open to the Polish marketplace?
Yeah, I think I'd agree with the points that you were making, but nothing particular to add on to that.
Okay. So obviously the biggest issue in our industry at the moment is the war on talent. What is Poland doing to actually make sure it upskills and has enough people available? I mean, what are you seeing, David?
Well, I mean, I think what we're seeing is that, I mean, there's a lot of students in Poland. I think it's about 1.4 million, and we are seeing that the courses that we're recruiting from are very, very relevant and are developing over time. So we're looking at some of the technologies that we're using. For example, I mentioned before using artificial intelligence technologies. Some of those programs are really keeping up to date, working with us as well to develop programs for their students, and so they're trying to address the specific needs that we would have, for example. So I'm seeing a very sort of a very strong university sector, and at the same time a lot of students are learning English and other languages, so they're continuing to develop their skills and their attractiveness in the market. So we're very positive. Even in Krakow, frankly, we don't need hundreds and hundreds of people, but we are able to grow, and it seems that the sector is growing at about 15% a year in Poland. So I think it's still a good market, an opportunity. Biggest problem we have actually is real estate, finding office space.
Just because there's not enough?
In Krakow, there's none.
Okay. And does that make it prohibitively expensive to stay in that area?
No, I mean it just means you have to plan a long way ahead if you want to expand.
Okay. So what would you say, Krzysztof, about the talent and the ongoing development of talent in Poland? Because one of the conversations that I was having in Łódź earlier on this week, and it actually was with, I think, the Deputy Minister of the Economy, was a requirement to actually change the national curriculum in Poland, even at the elementary level, and a much stronger focus on the soft skills that were required. So doing incredibly well in STEM subjects, but the soft skills were in need of development. Is that something you concur with?
All right, so starting with the less optimistic thing or bit is that I wish there was a better business university relationship. So I'm still, still need to fight, to get the universities to talk to the business, sort of that there is a partnership, not that we are university, we know the theory, so you listen, and the business, they might follow, might not. So I wish there was this better relationship. However, we're slightly getting there. I mean, in cities like Szczecin, we have a perfect university relationship, working on developing the talent, making sure that there is a talented pool available for us. But obviously, we will never be able, to keep the people on board for years. I mean, it might be that they will switch to other industry, to other jobs, and that's perfectly fine. There is a lot of movement in the area that you can learn coding even if you are like a nurse, or I don't know, you have been a waiter, and then you can learn coding, and then there will be job for you. Like you could start as a tester, and then you can move, I don't know, like to business analysis type of role or project management type of thing. What I recently heard, and that's actually a very interesting, it was two programmers talking to one another, and the one said to the other, you know what, I won't be making my children, I won't be forcing them to learn how to code, because I think in a few years from now, the machines will be coding, sort of, using the blocks and logical sort of thing, and you will have to be able to structure logically the bits and pieces, so the whole system comes and works as designed. And there will be more focus on the soft skill side that you've mentioned, that there will be the need to speak to the client, actually to be able to understand the client, because at the end of the day, and for God's sake, we are still humans, not being replaced by robots. I hope this won't happen in any future now, but I think there is a lot of movement in that space.
Okay, right, so you mentioned robots. We do need to talk about robots, because obviously, apart from the war on talent, it's the biggest issue I think the workforce is facing globally right now. Simon, techUK, what's your position on the impact of robots?
It's interesting. It follows directly onto that in terms of there was a big push to enforce or try and introduce coding into the UK education system, and we've got there, and then we've suddenly found that actually there aren't enough teachers to go out and do the coding to be able to teach this. And the other problem is that, as you say, if you teach coding now to kids, when they graduate in 10, 15 years' time, the coding that they've learned is going to be not relevant. It's fundamentally different, and machines will be able to do it. So you actually look at somewhere like Finland, where they are starting to change the modular nature of learning, of teaching. So you wouldn't necessarily learn geography or history or business or in those modular subjects. You're teaching it more in a way that is the soft skills that can be transferred, and it's going to be all about adaptability. So they're teaching things like verbal reasoning, numerical reasoning, and they're making sure that their workforce, as it grows through, is going to be flexible and adaptable, because the nature of and the future of work is that jobs that are here today are going to change, and workforce needs to adapt. And the key point is going to be about how can governments and business make sure that their talent is adaptable to be able to change, and the jobs that are here today might be lost, but new jobs are going to be created, and the key is going to be how can we make sure that those jobs are going to be filled and we have the right people going into them. So I don't think we're necessarily going to be losing jobs, it's just they're going to be different, and as a society, as a global society, we need to make sure that we're prepared for that.
Okay. David, as an oracle on automation, yeah, to set you up there. What's your view on the impact of automation, particularly for the Polish marketplace, especially looking at how much F&A outsourcing is actually done in Poland at the moment?
I mean, I have to say, overall, I'm an optimist. So, I agree. I think that overall, the automation opportunity will drive new work, new jobs, new roles for people that, and I'm talking about in the global market, I believe overall there'll be more people involved in doing new types of work. Automation, robotic automation, robots, even driverless cars, etc., will all drive an ecosystem that will require different people to manage, maintain, and operate that. I think one of the, in fact, we were talking at the ABSL conference, which was the Business Services Conference just earlier this week. I think the challenge for certain sectors is, for example, in business services, it's quite focused on doing some of the same work that automation is focused on. And therefore, maybe there is a concentration of a problem, which could be that some of the work that is often outsourced or some of the work that is being provided in shared service centres, maybe the kind of work that is easily automated using a robotic automation tool. So therefore, the important thing I think for Poland, if it's going to sort of mitigate that risk, is to make sure that it is actually at the forefront of taking on those new roles. So actually driving the automation, driving the robotics, developing the technologies, implementing those technologies, and managing and maintaining the robots or the other automations that may take place. And Poland has the opportunity to be at the forefront of that. And as I pointed out last week, there are other countries in business services that are much bigger, India being probably the biggest one. They're facing a terrible crisis right now. I mean, a company that's used to be growing its business services sector at 15-20% per year is flat at best. Okay, and these companies are very large Indian corporations. They want to grow. So the problem that's being faced now, I think, or the threat to Poland, is that the Indian market is going to be cheaper, more viciously competing, and will be coming after that same automation work. So Poland needs to, and the folks in the ABSL organisation and others that are in the shared services, whatever you believe about where we are today in Poland, you are competing against a massive force in India and other places. And unless you take the lead in driving automation initiatives and creating these new roles in Poland, then you'll be falling behind. And actually what you'll find is these bigger services countries will start automating what you are doing. And I think that's the biggest threat. So I'm an optimist, but on the one hand, it's all about taking action now and doing something about it so that the Polish economy is a leader in these technologies and the implementation of them rather than actually gets automated and goes away or shrinks.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, Phelim, would you like to add to that? Because also we've got a question here that is looking at what could be, looking at the impact of the Indian marketplace, but also the growth of Romanian and Ukrainian markets and what sort of impact that might actually have on Poland as the go-to technology hub.
Yeah, I see one on the US presidency as well. So, yeah, I think I'd echo what the guys were saying. When you speak, kind of what I'm hearing is that there's so many commonalities between Poland and Ireland, being Irish. Quite an educated workforce and a lot of emigration, but with people coming back. Perhaps Ireland's a few years ahead of that, and we have more coming back, I'm sure. And again, I mean, the points made are valid around, with training, when you start kind of narrowing down and going down a vocational route, by the time you finish that training, the skills that you've learned are outdated. So it's interesting when you refer to coding in that way, because a lot of people wouldn't think of that, but you're absolutely right.
Okay, so with the Irish coming back, what sort of work are they doing? Because this actually reflects the question, the key question, which 5 people have liked up here. Can you see specific opportunities for Poles with UK market experience coming back to Poland as a result of Brexit?
I think perhaps one of the differences between the Irish and Polish markets is perhaps I'll be correct when I say this, but you have like a lot of US investment into the Irish markets. And in addition, so you have a lot of, like, in particular, medical devices companies and whatnot. And then in addition, you have a lot of companies headquartered out of Dublin because of their low corporation tax rates. So the services industry in Dublin is extremely strong. And so I think the Irish have their fingers crossed that Brexit's going to help that. So kind of with the US presidency, I mean, I don't want to talk about Ireland, but I think Irish people are they're a little bit worried about, you know, what policies Trump might bring in. He's already signalled that, you know, he's an all for these US firms bringing jobs offshore. So we'll have to watch that. Right, it's back to Poland.
Okay, thanks. Krzysztof, what opportunities do you think there might be for Poles coming back that have got UK market experience?
I think, you know, what we might still be missing in terms of, you know, we have highly creative people. I mean, it's amazing skill set that is out there, but the problem I see is whenever I talk to the startup guys, it's probably the startup world, right? They all think that their idea is the best, and you know, everyone will buy it. We just need to support them, invest, and stuff. But I think we might be still missing a bit of this, you know, business acumen, a bit of this, you know, ability to talk to the client, to understand the other side. Also, it took me personally a while to understand how to actually do business with British people. It's not that it's different, but it's, you know, it's just normal. You know, I love to come here and talk business with the guys. So the opportunities for us might be that we will be able to scale up and really have more companies that will be internationally recognized and know, like CD Projekt that some of you may know, that are really went international, and they are capitalized probably. I don't know the exact number, but very, very highly. But coming back to the automation question, I'm an optimist, so I do believe in people, and there is a lot of centers in Poland that are, you know, in this low-level transactional type of, you know, jobs that could be easily automated, I guess. But my colleagues that are running the centers, they sort of, you know, they seem to be taking the, you know, the initiative and sort of encouraging their people, their staff. You know, you don't need to be filling the papers like 8 hours a day and that's it, check marking stuff the same places. You could be doing different things. And people by nature, I think they are sort of, you know, they're eager to learn. I mean, they are willing to learn. You just need to show them how. And interestingly enough, and this is what has been mentioned already, I think Manpower recently published a study, and they said that 60% of the jobs that will be on the market in 15 years from now are not yet defined. And this is where we don't know. I mean, it's probably like the Brexit thing, right? Nobody knows how it will end. It's just, you know, take an UX UI designer, for instance. This job has not been, you know, sort of as, you know, recognized in the market 10 years from now. And it's just right now, nobody can imagine that you don't have it. It's just, you know, because people are interested, you know, in how do I use it? How does it look like? Whether it's nice to operate in these things, and this is what it brings.
Yeah. I agree. I think it is the relationship management, it is the cultural affinity. Those sort of roles will be hugely beneficial for continuing to grow relations with UK companies. So big opportunities there. Right, so we're looking at the political issues. Brexit aside, we've got a question about the US presidency here and what impact that might have on UK and Poland. Phelim, Ivan, I keep saying it the wrong way around.
No one gets it right. It's interesting, isn't it? I think, you know, the impact on the UK from the Trump presidency, to start with, I mean, who knows? I think it's, you know, we don't know what Trump will do from one day to the next. And equally, we have the uncertainty with Brexit. Obviously, Theresa May, I think, went over, and there was a lot of fanfare made about a potential deal between the UK and the US. Obviously, once we're outside the EU, the difference is that you can agree these bilateral trade agreements with other countries. When you're within the EU, you cannot do that. The EU does that on your behalf. So I think, you know, what the Trump presidency and how it will impact the UK and Poland. I think with the UK, it's a little bit unclear. As I said earlier, though, I think he's already signalling that, you know, any large US companies that have jobs offshore, particularly some of the large car makers, that he'd like to see them brought back onshore, and I'm sure that principle will apply across industry sectors.
Yeah, there's a very strong vibe of onshoring, isn't there? David, you got anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, we, you know, a number of our clients are very large US entities. They are all positioning to at least be looking at the opportunity to repatriate services work. Generally not from, in my experience, certainly not from Poland, but certainly from the far shore locations. There's a lot more sensitivity around work that's being performed in India, for example, than work that's being performed in Poland. My sense is that you know, there may be a lot of posturing and talk about it from the presidency, but you'd have to have some pretty difficult conversations with some large corporations if you wanted to force them to do anything about it. So my feeling is that it's you know, it may be setting a tone, but I think it's very difficult for him to practically stop organisations from doing it, from using offshore resources or from you know, operating services, you know, from certainly from Poland and the UK.
That was certainly something that David Cameron actually said last week as well, or this week, and he felt that although Trump had made loads of wild claims, he'd backtracked on virtually every single one of them so far. So politics, what about Polish politics? Is there not an increased risk of the change of government you've got and the focus more on a nationalist sort of approach? We're certainly hearing ramifications. Are there any, Krzysztof?
I think, you know, putting aside whether I support our current government or not, it's like, I think there is a certain level of uncertainty outside of Poland. You know, when you talk to, you know, a foreign investor that is thinking about, you know, setting up his new operating center in Poland or any other country, and he might have never been to the country. He's obviously looking on a, you know, on statistics, or, you know, like say, there are now Gartner Magic Quadrants for countries, stuff, but, you know, sort of things like that. And he obviously takes into account politics. And yes, it is uncertain nowadays. It might be perceived that way. I wish, you know, at the even in London, actually, we hosted Mateusz Morawiecki, who is the economy prime minister of Poland. And I was glad that he was able to hear, you know, like large investment banking heads and CEOs saying that, you know, in this case, it is not enough for him to, you know, to say that it is okay and safe still doing business in Poland. It's rather that, you know, you need to be doing a lot more so that, you know, the outside world see it exactly the same way as they, I mean, governments say that it is. So I do understand, you know, if I was in Poland, I would be speaking, I mean, thinking about it, and then certainly I would be concerned.
David, have you seen anything?
No, nothing specific. I mean, I think I must admit I don't know an awful lot about the Polish politics, but I don't think I've seen any particular change or concern around that. You know, it was interesting last week just seeing how, you know, they're trying to reduce barriers to investment, for example, but I think that's always been an issue that still needs to be addressed.
Yeah. Phelim?
Nothing new.
I think I'm in your boat. I know less than some of the panel about Polish national politics.
Okay, right, good. Well, not good, but fine. Right, moving on. There's another question here. Don't you think learning to code has more to do with logical thinking, and we should encourage that as much as allowing kids to learn arts or sports? So we're going back onto the talent. Anybody want to take that question? Yeah.
I can take that. I mean, I think absolutely it makes sense for us to be teaching our kids to code. tech is underpinning pretty much every industry, and it is a major part of the economy and just the kind of global community. And so, yeah, absolutely, we should be teaching kids to code. I think also arts and sport also have value for various different reasons. I don't think it's necessarily a zero-sum game. I think we should be teaching kids to code, but we should also be aware that what they're learning now isn't necessarily going to prepare them for a job. And I mean, I think a job in the future, and one of the things, certainly in the UK, that we have is we have a gap between the tech grads coming from the universities, and we have some very good universities in this country, and what the tech sector actually needs. And it goes to your point earlier in terms of that business isn't necessarily completely linked up with the education system. And I think if we can do more of that, then that's only a good thing. But we need to make sure that kids aren't learning coding and going, right, that's the job I'm going to be doing in 10 years' time, because there needs to be acknowledgement that the world of work is shifting every day, and we need to make sure that there's that flexibility within that.
And I just add, and concur entirely with that. I think it's more about dealing with the pace of change that's coming. So the fact is, we were saying a lot of the jobs that we'll be doing even 5 years from now don't even exist today. And I think what we should be teaching our kids is the ability to learn and to adapt and to change to what's happening at that point in time. And I think for me that should be the focus as we're looking at designing education systems now. Should be teach people to teach themselves, and you can guide them, but I think you need to just really develop the skills which enable them to change and do different things in the future.
Okay, thank you. Right, so we're getting quite close to the end of our time, so I'd just like to give each panellist less than a minute to say what their advice would be for... do you not want to start with that one, Phelim? I'll start this end. Through your face. Their advice would be for Poland and Polish companies, specifically with regard to relations with the UK marketplace.
You sure you want to start this end? I mean, I think that politics at the moment is painting a very complicated picture. There is a lot of uncertainty. Things are moving at quite a big pace, and I think business almost needs to be mindful of that, but almost ignore it and look at the business needs of what's happening. Okay, of course, have one eye on what's going to happen with the politics and what's going to happen with Brexit, with the US, and with everything that's happening with the geopolitics. But business is business, and it will continue almost despite of that. And I think as companies do what you do, innovate and look for partners, their tech is borderless, and there are huge opportunities, and I think companies need to make sure they're aware that they are embracing as many of those opportunities as possible.
Okay, thank you. Krzysztof?
I mean, from my perspective, I'm not that big supporter of this stay calm and keep doing business thing, but in this case I would say that we should sort of put Brexit not totally aside, but a bit of aside, and see what will be actually negotiated, because as for now there has been only, talking different scenarios, and it's too early to start mitigating risk and taking a real action, because nobody really knows. And I think the Brits and the Poles, I think we know how to do business together. We seem to understand each other very well, and I think we need each other. I mean, especially in this tech space, we are there to provide probably initial sort of high quality services. I love doing business here in the UK, so I think for me it's I really like not to teach the Brexit thing when I talk to the clients, because then we end up discussing, speculating for an hour or so, and there is no more time for real business discussion. Thank you.
I would say my advice would be just just believe that you're part of the global economy and behave like it. I think it's easy to put your head in the sand when all businesses around you are transforming into digital businesses, when you should be thinking about how you get yourselves to that same place. The relationship with your customers, will change, particularly if you're exporting and you're trying to sell into markets outside of Poland. Your relationship with your employees is changing because they're new. A lot of them are a new digital breed. They don't, they have these fantastic tools at home and they go to work and it's like, this is really, not what I'm expecting anymore. And I think that we just got to bring everybody up in the digital age and really have to start everybody thinking about how their businesses should evolve. And the use of technologies like RPA and so on, let's use the opportunity to create those new future models rather than thinking about job cuts or reducing staffing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'd echo what the guys say. Like, I think it's very difficult. So the question is, the trade between Polish companies and the UK market and how they can predict things going in the future and plan around that. Really, that's a question of can you predict Brexit? And I think the answer must be you can't. It's unknowable. My guess would be that the route they'll go down, it won't be any of the models really. It'll be a tailored, a bespoke bilateral agreement. That probably won't take 2 years. It'll probably take a lot longer. Yeah. So I just think in that context it's too difficult to plan around it. It's unknowable. So.
Okay. And my final advice probably would be don't be blindsided by automation. It's coming, it's going to have a huge impact, but I think there are positives from it, especially if you are thinking about digital transformation and thinking about the softer skills of your employees to maximise the opportunities. And just to close, I would like to say one thing, which is what David Cameron actually said. And that was, he wanted all members of the audience to really think about what their own companies were doing with regard to Brexit, and this whole thing of pushing Britain really, really hard and squeezing Britain for the tightest deal you could possibly get is only going to have negative ramifications for all the countries around Europe. So I don't know whether I like the sound of that because it worked really well for Britain, but it sounded fairly realistic to me. So thank you very much to the panellists, and thank you very much for your time, and thanks for hosting us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kerry. Thank you very much.